Okay, so listen for a second, okay? This is way later than I meant to record this. I meant to have this out at least a week ago. Uh, Things happen, life gets in the way. I have kids and a job. So here we are. We're going to do the second Q&A that I wanted to do after hitting 2,000 subscribers. Thank you guys again for that. So let's go through some more of your questions. All right, this first one is actually several questions, so I will just go through them quickly. Favorite series, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Favorite standalone? Shit, do I read standalones? I'm going to say Kings of the Wild because it's the only... Bloody Rose is the sequel, but I don't think it's like a true sequel. So for now, I'm going to say Kings of the Wild. But I have a feeling Sword of Kaigen, when I do read it, will take over that position. Favorite author? I'm going to say Pierce Brown because Red Rising is my favorite series. I'm also going to add John Gwynne in there because Faithful and the Fallen is fantastic. But yeah, Pierce Brown. Favorite genre? Fantasy. All right, what do I prefer in books? Humor or gore? Either way. I like a good blend. It could be either or. Something like Dark Age, which is book 5 of Red Rising, is very gory and very dark and not a lot of humor. But I also just finished the Greatcoat series, which is full of humor with not really a lot of gore. And I'm reading Kings of the Wild, which is pretty laid back and hilarious. Dry writing or lyrical prose? I mean, if those were the two options, I'd say dry, just because lyrical I haven't read a lot of. I'd say the most flowery book that I read was Assassin's Apprentice, and it was the first book that I read after a decade off of not reading any fantasy, so I didn't love the writing style. It was hard for me to get into, but I am actually eager to get into more of that now that I've read more, because I do think I would have a better appreciation for it. So I guess for now, though, more straightforward prose is kind of what I lean towards. Hard magic or soft magic? It really depends. I love hard magic systems like Allomancy. I think it's the coolest magic system that I've read. And I also like soft magic systems where it's either something like Stormlight, where it's pretty soft, but there are some rules, or even as soft as like in the Greatcoats, there's very little magic, and when there is magic, it's not explained at all. I don't really care either way. I don't have like a preference, I guess, but I can appreciate when an author takes the time to actually develop a a hard magic system, because something like Allomancy again, or like I hear about in Lightbringer, there's so much work that goes into actually creating that and having rules and parameters that I can better, if there's a lot less BS that goes into a hard magic system when you actually have rules, because a soft magic system, you can just kind of hand wave a lot of things away and say, oh, well, it's magic, they can just do this. So I guess I would prefer hard magic, but I like both. It kind of depends on the book. Character driven or plot driven? Definitely character first, but I need something to happen. I do hear something like The First Law doesn't have an awful lot of plot, but the characters are so good that it doesn't matter. I will see for myself shortly, but definitely character focused, but I do like a good plot. All right, what are some of my underrated fantasy series or books? I'm still going to say Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, which I'm getting back to, just because it still seems like even after Mike and Petrick and a bunch of other people have talked about it, it's not quite as popular as it should be, because those books are fantastic. I'm going to mention Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade, which is one I read earlier this year. I don't hear too much about it. It was a pretty fun, lighthearted, easy-to-read fantasy story that kind of takes the Chosen One trope and flips it on its head. So that was actually a lot of fun, and I still need to do a review for it. All right, how do I balance family life with Booktube life? It's tough sometimes, not gonna lie. This video should have been out a week ago. It really depends on how busy I am with work, how busy I am with the kids, whether my mom can watch them as our daycare or not. There's a million things that get into it. Some nights I don't want to read. Some nights I don't want to film something. I'd rather just do nothing or sit back and watch TV or game. So it can be tough, but this is my main hobby and I'm having a lot of fun with it, so I usually find time for it. And then related question, are you more of a systematic planner type or do you prefer to go with the flow? I'm very much a go with the flow kind of guy. I do not plan an awful lot, and definitely like making a TBR for the next month is probably the most planning that I do. I do need to get better about planning videos sometimes, but even that can get thrown out the window because of family life or work. So if I feel like recording and I have something in mind, I'm going to record it, edit it, and then usually get it out the next day or two. Circa 300 books on your TBR. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. What factors most influence which select few become the chosen one each month? So right now, my TBR is mostly trying to continue series that I've started this year as of right now, because I'm getting back to a lot of things and trying to wrap up series before starting more. So like I read the entire Cosmere this year. I got 2 books into Faithful and the Fallen before starting Wheel of Time, and then got 5 books into that before dropping it for other stuff temporarily, because I haven't read in so long that I want to read everything. But that's also a bad thing, because then I'm starting everything, and I need to get back to finishing series that I've started. I say that fully knowing that I'm starting Malazan next month. It's kind of just a mix of finishing a series I've already started, starting a new series if I'm really interested in it, if there's a particular book or series that people are talking about a lot, or like a new release coming up. Like I knew Fires of Vengeance was going to be on my November TBR. I knew Rhythm of War was going to be on my November TBR. I am doing a couple of other like read-alongs, so I know those are going to be on my TBR, but in general, it's probably just whatever I'm feeling. I want to get into more sci-fi and thrillers and stuff like that, so I'm going to slowly be dripping more of those in as well, but those are kind of ad hoc, really. It might be 1 a month at most. If you could bastardize multiple magic systems to become an all-powerful being, what combo of powers would you want? Goodness. Well, I would start with Allomancy, because I would want Adium. I would mix in Stormlight, so I could fly and basically be a Windrunner. And I would have badass Shard Plate and a Shard Blade. So I feel like that with Allomancy, I'd already be pretty indestructible. And if for some reason that wasn't enough, I'm going to take Shaman Rin powers from the Poppy War and just burn the shit out of everybody. When am I going to start reading Russian books? As soon as I get a copy of Metro 2033. How did you decide to become a booktuber? I think I answered this the last time, but I started watching a lot of Booktube like end of last year, and then it kind of got me into fantasy again, mostly just from Daniel's channel. And then I found Mike and I found Elliot and some others, and it just really got me wanting to read again. So I started picking up books, and then as soon as I read Mistborn, I finished that trilogy and absolutely loved it. And I saw other people's channels, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. So I started recording videos, and the first ones are terrible. But here I am, and I'm loving it. To the last part, or did it come naturally? At first it was hard. I was trying to script things a lot because I was nervous to talk on camera. I didn't know anything about lighting or editing, so that's been a learning curve. Sorry, I'm just checking my baby monitor. Okay, kids are alive. We're good. It's much more natural now. I don't really script anything anymore. I have a loose, I guess, video framing in mind, or like points that I want to hit on. But scripting felt too robotic, and that's why I don't do it anymore. Overall, what are the most anticipated books? I'm really looking forward to the Malazan read-along next year. I'm looking forward to getting back to the Wheel of Time and wrapping up some other series. Since this year's almost over, there's not a whole lot of like new releases that I'm looking forward to, because I'd have to look. There's not a lot coming out that I'm like itching to get to. So really just stuff that I have to catch up on, which is all the popular series that I haven't read yet. My most anticipated sci-fi books that I want to read, I will just point here to my top 10 sci-fi books that I want to read. One of those, by the way, I did read already, which was Dune, which is one of the greatest sci-fi books of all time, and arguably my favorite sci-fi book that I've read. My favorite series is Red Rising still, but Dune is probably my favorite sci-fi book. Watch any other booktubers? If so, who are your favorites? Moid, you know you are dear to my heart, because you're hilarious and your sci-fi reviews are awesome, and you know your shit. So, Moid at Media Death Cult. Obviously, Mike at Mike's Book Reviews. Alan at the Library of Alexandria. There's a lot. Elliot Brooks. Captured in Words. Daniel Green. I mean, there's a million people that I watch right now. It's the majority of YouTube that I watch. It's half of the channels that I'm sub to, basically, are Booktube channels, so there are a lot. What book or series do I wish I had written, and have I thought about writing anything myself? Well, I am not a writer whatsoever, so I don't really think about writing anything myself. I don't plan on being an author. I don't plan on writing any of my own stories. I am not creative enough to do that, but I do love reading and I love talking about books, so that's what I will continue to do. If I had any semblance of writing finesse or skill, I would probably wish I had written something like Lord of the Rings, because it's always going to be a classic and everybody's going to talk about it probably till the end of time. Okay, so this one's kind of long, so I'll post it on the screen, but I'm just going to read, I'm going to paraphrase it. So just my thoughts on reading a series straight through or breaking it up with other books. Because I am doing Booktube, that is the main reason that I'm breaking things up. So it's really a combination, though, is just getting back to reading this year. I want to read everything, so I'm starting a bunch of different series because I want to try things and see what I'm really into. And if something really catches me, I'll probably read it all the way through. But it's still most likely going to be one, maybe two books at a time per month for a series, just because I'm trying to read so many different things. So like the Great Coats, for example, I got into that because of Mike and his channel's read along, but I read that over 4 months because it was 4 books. Wheel of Time, I was reading 1 book a month. I think there might have been a month or two where I read 2 of them, but then I was trying to get other series in as well, so I kind of took a break. I'd say for shorter series, they're probably easier to do back to back to back. Something like Book of the Ancestor. The books are rather short, so you could easily knock out all 3 books in a month and read other stuff. Something like Wheel of Time or Stormlight Archive, the books are just so damn big, and I don't read fast enough to knock them all out in a month or two. My favorite movie of all time and my most hated movie. So, I don't know. Most hated movie. I don't hate a lot of stuff. I mean, I think a lot of movies are bad or stupid. I think if I had to say, like, the one that comes to mind immediately would be Aragon, just because I was so in love with the first couple of books of that series when I read it, because I was like 16 or 17 at the time. And then when the movie came out, I was so eager to see it. Me and my buddy went opening night, and God, it was terrible. So I'm going to say Aragon, the movie. And my favorite movie of all time, I would honestly have to give this question more thought. I'm going to say, I'd have to give it more thought, but I'm going to say The Two Towers. I watch Lord of the Rings literally all the time. I even have it on in the background when I read occasionally, just because I've seen it so many times that I just can listen to it as background noise, basically, and then perk up at certain scenes that I want to. And the soundtrack's beautiful. But I'm never going to forget Helm's Deep. I mean, it was just one of the coolest battle moments of a movie that I've ever seen. And I remember seeing that opening night, midnight, in a big-ass theater. And just everything about that movie and that scene in particular, that whole battle was just beautiful. If I gave you $100 million, I'm going to stop right there, Philip. Next question. What would I do for the rest of my life? I don't have $100 million, and if I did, I wouldn't give it all to you. It's rude. But theoretically, literally just whatever I want. So I'm the kind of person that, like, I don't, if I, like, won the lottery, so this question, if you gave me $100 million, I would obviously quit my job. I would make sure my family's taken care of. I mean, that's a lot of money. I would take care of my family for generations to come, probably forever. My wife and I would buy a nice house with our kids, basically do whatever we want to the house. But in general, like a day-to-day thing, I would game, I would golf, and I would read. And be with my family and not working. So I would basically stay the same. I would just have money and I wouldn't have to work. After that, I would probably donate for sure, and maybe invest. I mean, I would just be so laid back knowing that I don't have to worry about money ever again, that I would be chilling. When and why did I start reading fantasy and sci-fi? If you're talking about originally, it's just because I've always been kind of a nerd and into fantasy, RPGs, things like that growing up. A lot of Final Fantasy, Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, things like that. So I've always been a huge fantasy dork. And I started reading probably in elementary school, back when there were like scholastic book fairs, and I would read shit like Captain Underpants and Magic Treehouse, those kinds of books. So I've always kind of read. And then through high school, just growing up and reading Harry Potter and Aragon, and then just kind of falling out of reading for a decade plus because I was just doing other things, college, football, all kinds of like sports, swim team things, and I just wasn't reading. I was gaming a lot, playing a heavy amount of World of Warcraft and other things that I just didn't have time for reading. It wasn't my focus. But now I game far less and I read a lot more. What is a new series I'm most excited to read? So if you're talking about a brand new series yet to come, I don't know yet. But a new series that I have not read, so it would be new to me, I'm very excited to start First Law. What was the first book that pulled me into reading? Again, I mean, book fairs as a kid, so probably Magic Treehouse. How do I find time to read with a career and 2 young children? You just have to make time for it. Basically, if you do have time throughout the day where you're doing other things, scrolling Reddit or looking at your phone, you could be reading. But usually most of my reading time or free time in general comes at night when the kids are asleep. It's basically, unless my wife and I are spending time together watching a movie or hanging out, I'm reading, she's watching TV, and that's basically what I do until I go to bed. So I have plans on writing my own book. So I answered this earlier, but no, I am not a writer. I just like to read and talk about books. You don't want to see me write a book. What is my career? I am an IT auditor. So I do advisory work and assessment work in the IT field. So it's mostly based on government compliance. And that's all I'm going to say about that before everyone turns this video off. And good thing I didn't dive into that further, because that was the last question I was going to answer. So thank you all again for your questions. I always like doing this, just having everybody get to know me a little bit more. And I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you guys have. So thank you again. Thank you for all the support. It is truly incredible to me that I have over 2,000 subscribers after starting this earlier this year. Never expected that this year at all. And thank you to everybody who has helped support the channel, whether it be Mike or Elliot or Jesse or any of you out there that have mentioned me in a video or, collabed with me, any of that. I appreciate all of you. So like and subscribe as always. Do join the Patreon if you want to support the channel financially. That's always optional, but always appreciated. But do jump in Discord or leave me a comment down below and continue the conversation, because I love talking about books. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. So until next time, keep reading.